At my dad's retirement party, my daughter-in-law exposed me as a fraud. Months later, I exposed her shocking secret in court. I'll never forget the sound of the champagne cork popping at my father's retirement party, the sound that shattered my life. My brother Lionel was raising his glass, my mom was passing out plates of her famous homemade lasagna, and then Veronica, my daughter-in-law, leaned in with that smile that could cut glass. You know, she whispered loud enough for the entire table to hear, "Samuel isn't the man you all think he is, he's been hiding something." That was the moment my stomach dropped. I couldn't swallow. My hand shook so badly I almost dropped the fork. Everyone's eyes turned to me, my mom's lasagna steaming in front of me, the smell of oregano and baked cheese mixing with the sharp tang of betrayal. In a single breath, she started unraveling my entire life. How did it get here? A year earlier, I trusted Veronica. She was family. She was married to my son, Darren, and I believed she cared about him, about us. But last year, my business partner embezzled every dollar of my savings and framed me for tax fraud. The IRS was at my door. Stress crushed my chest until I ended up hospitalized, staring at the clock 3:47 a.m. while machines beeped around me. Veronica promised she would help, that she believed me, but she was already twisting the knife behind my back. Back when I turned 30, I thought I was invincible. I'd just paid off my student loans, slapped my college graduation ring back onto my finger, and told myself I'd never be broke again. I was wrong. Now, at 31, I had exactly $47.82 in my checking account. That number haunted me more than any nightmare. I checked my banking app compulsively, hoping it would somehow change. Lionel tried to be there for me. "Sam, you're not crazy," he said one night when I called him at 2 a.m., shaking from another panic attack. "They're gaslighting you, making you doubt yourself is part of the game." And God, he was right. The gaslighting made me question my own memories. Veronica would tell me things like, "You did sign that paper, Samuel, don't you remember?" But I didn't. Or maybe I did. I'd lie awake at night replaying conversations, my chest tight, the smell of bacon from the downstairs diner wafting through my cracked apartment window. I couldn't tell what was real anymore. The neighbours noticed too. They whispered whenever I walked by. I'd see curtains twitch, catch fragments of sentences. "Isn't he the one who?" And the IRS fraud shameful. My reputation tanked overnight. Friends stopped returning my calls. Clients pulled their accounts. Even at church, people avoided sitting next to me. I was radioactive. The first red flag with Veronica came small. She accidentally forwarded me an email where she called me unstable. She apologized, of course, swore it was a mistake. But the seed was planted. Every time she looked at me, I felt judged, dissected, like she was gathering ammunition. Lionel warned me again. "Sam, watch her, she's not who you think." But I didn't want to believe him. I still clung to the hope that family couldn't possibly betray me like that. That night at the retirement party, I realized how wrong I was. Veronica's words weren't just an attack, they were a declaration of war. "Samuel isn't innocent," she said, her voice slicing through the chatter. "He's been hiding money overseas." I laughed too loudly, too desperately. "That's insane, Veronica, you know that's not true." But she tilted her head, eyes wide with faux innocence. "Don't you remember, Samuel, you told me yourself one night after too many drinks." I hadn't. I never would. But as the room fell silent, as even Lionel's face flickered with doubt, I felt the weight of her trap closing in. Mom set down the lasagna, her hand trembling. Dad cleared his throat, but said nothing. My son Darren stared at his wife torn between me and her. And I wanted to crawl out of my own skin. That was the first time I realized I wasn't fighting just an embezzling ex-partner. I was fighting Veronica too. And she was willing to burn the whole family to the ground just to win. After the retirement party, nothing felt the same. The taste of Mom's lasagna still lingered in my mouth, but it was tainted, like ashes. I couldn't look across the table without imagining Veronica sharpening her words like knives. Darren barely met my eyes. And Lionel? He just clenched his jaw and said nothing, but I could see the stone building behind his silence. That night I couldn't sleep. My phone screen glared back at me 3:47 a.m. again. Same damn time as the night in the hospital when I thought my heart would give out. I got up, poured water, and stared at my reflection. My college graduation ring glinted faintly in the kitchen light. I twisted it on my finger until my skin turned red. It used to symbolize hope. Now it felt like an anchor dragging me into memories I didn't want. The first escalation came a week later. Darren called. His voice was tight, clipped. "Dad, Veronica says you've been hiding checks from the IRS letters. Is that true?" I felt the blood drain from my face. "What, Darren? No, why would I even..." "She said she found them in your desk, that you told her not to show anyone." I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles whitened. "Darren, listen to me. I never said that. She's lying." But even as I spoke, my son hesitated. Silence stretched. That silence told me everything. She was getting to him. When I turned 30, I remember celebrating with Darren. We drank cheap beers on my porch, laughing about how life was finally settling down. He said, "Dad, you're my rock, you never let me down." I held onto those words through all my darkest nights. Now, 1 year later, he was doubting me because of her whispers. Lionel saw it too. "She's isolating you," he told me one morning when we grabbed coffee. "Classic tactic, she'll make Darren believe you're unstable until you've got no one." I wanted to deny it, but the signs kept piling up. Darren stopped inviting me to dinner. Family group texts went quiet whenever I chimed in. Veronica kept posting vague Facebook statuses about toxic people who lie with emojis of broken hearts and snakes. Neighbors shared the screenshots with pitying looks. The gaslighting only grew worse. At one point, Veronica confronted me directly. "Samuel, you told me about the offshore account. Don't backtrack now." I blinked at her. What off her account, Veronica? I don't even have savings anymore. I have $47.82 in my account. That's it. She smiled, tilting her head like she was talking to a child. Funny how you keep forgetting things. Maybe you should see a doctor. My chest tightened. My breaths grew shallow. Panic attack. She stood there watching me crumble, arms folded, as if my pain proved her point. The community made it worse. At the grocery store, whispers followed me. One man actually muttered, "There goes the fraud." The humiliation burned hotter than any flame. Work was no escape. Clients bailed, saying they couldn't afford the risk of being associated with me. Even my boss pulled me aside and said, "Sam, maybe lay low for a while. It's bad optics." I was collapsing socially, financially, emotionally. But the true kicker came when Lionel discovered something dark. He showed up at my apartment, eyes blazing. "Sam, listen to this. Our family lawyer, the one you've been trusting, he's feeding information to Veronica, confidential stuff. I overheard him talking at a marriage bar. She's paying him." I froze. My stomach turned cold. No, that's impossible. But the puzzle pieces fit. Every legal move I tried to make against my ex-partner, every private strategy Veronica knew before I even acted. Then came the corrupt cop. I'd gone to the precinct twice to file reports about the embezzlement and the harassment. Both times, the officer assigned to me, a man named Peterson, brushed me off. The paperwork's messy, hard to pursue. Lionel's voice was low when he told me, "Peterson's on her payroll too." She slipped him an envelope at a diner. I saw it. I wanted to scream. The betrayal wasn't just inside the family. It was in the institutions I thought I could trust. Everywhere I turned, another knife. The nightmares began soon after. I dream of walking into court naked, everyone pointing at me, Veronica's voice echoing, "Liar, fraud, criminal." I woke drenched in sweat, heart pounding. Some nights, I'd claw at my chest thinking I was about to die. Therapy was Lionel's idea. "Sam, you need help, they're breaking you down." The therapist's office smelled faintly of lavender and paper. I told her about the gaslighting, the whispers, the sleepless nights. She said, "Your nervous system is stuck in survival mode. You've been rewired by prolonged stress and betrayal." I believed her, because by then, I didn't recognize myself anymore. By the time spring rolled around, I realized I was in a war on every front: family, community, legal system. And the worst part? Veronica was winning. But the storm hadn't fully broken yet. I didn't know it then, but the shocking truth, the one that would rip the ground out from under me, was still to come. The breaking point came on May 12th. I remember the date because it was the night I discovered the file that nearly made me vomit. Lionel asked me to meet him at his place. His living room smelled of cooking bacon. He always fried some late at night when he couldn't sleep. He slid a manila envelope across the table. "You need to see this, Sam, but brace yourself." Inside were photocopies of emails. My name was all over them. Offshore accounts. Wire transfers to shell corporations. Signatures that looked like mine, but weren't. My throat closed. "Where the hell did you get these?" Lionel's jaw tightened. "From our lawyer's computer. He's been doctoring documents for Veronica. He's helping her build a case to prove you're a criminal." I stared at the papers until my vision blurred. I wanted to scream, to smash something, to claw the skin off my own arms. "They're framing me." Lionel nodded grimly. "Yeah, and the worst part, Peterson, the cop, he's ignoring it because he's on her payroll. I confirmed it. He gets cash, she gets protection." That night I couldn't sleep. At exactly 3:47 a.m. I sat on my couch, staring at my bank app. $47.82. That number mocked me while my will burned. My college graduation ring dug into my skin as I clenched my fist. I thought about how proud Dad had been when I graduated. How he told me, "No one can ever take this from you," but they had taken everything else. Why not that too? The gaslighting had already warped my brain. I caught myself wondering, maybe I really did sign something. Maybe I just forgot. That thought scared me more than anything. If I couldn't trust my own mind, how could I fight them? The social fallout was suffocating. One afternoon, I walked past Mrs. Henderson, the neighbor who used to bring me cookies every Christmas. She whispered to another woman, "That's him, the one who scanned the IRS." Their eyes followed me like I was a monster. Even strangers joined in. At the bar downtown, I'd overheard two guys talking about some loser who faked accounts and blamed his partner. My chest clenched so hard I had to leave. Public shame had become my shadow. Work was gone, friends evaporated, and my own son barely spoke to me. Veronica had poisoned every well I had. But the deepest cut came when Lionel uncovered the affair. We were sitting in his truck outside Darren's house, watching the lights flick on and off. Lionel's voice was low, heavy. "Sam, I need to tell you something. Veronica's been sleeping with your old business partner." The words didn't register at first. Then they hit like a hammer. "What?" "She wasn't just helping him screw you financially. They're together. That's why she's so hell-bent on destroying you. If you go down, they both walk free." My stomach lurched. I leaned out of the truck and threw up on the curb. The betrayal doubled, now tripled. She wasn't just sabotaging me, she was covering for the man who had stolen my life. The nightmares worsened. I'd wake drenched, hearing Veronica's voice in my ear. Sometimes I hallucinated shadows moving in the corners of my apartment. Panic attacks hit randomly once while I was buying milk. I had to abandon the cart and run out, gasping for air. Therapy sessions grew darker. My therapist said, "Samuel, betrayal trauma can mimic PTSD. Your mind is in constant hypervigilance." She was right. Every text ping made me jump. Every knock at the door felt like the IRS coming back. Then came the most shocking revelation of all. Lionel barged into my apartment one evening, pale and sweating. Sam, he faked his death. What? Your ex-partner. He staged a car crash. Empty coffin. Fake funeral. Everything. He's been hiding out, running new scams. Veronica's helping cover it. I felt the room tilt. My knees buckled. No, that can't be real. But it was. Lionel had photos, police reports, documents. The so-called death had been a smokescreen. And Veronica was right there, keeping his secret. That revelation was the moment my despair turned to rage. I looked Lionel in the eye and said, I'm done letting them play me. If no one else will listen, I'll find proof myself. Lionel nodded. Then we go all in, we find what they missed, we take them down in court. For the first time in months, a spark lit inside me. My hand still shook, my chest still ached, but beneath it all anger burned hotter than fear. Because now I knew the truth. And soon, the world would too. The courtroom smelled like old paper and disinfectant, and my palms were slick with sweat. My college graduation ring dug into my finger as I twisted it over and over, a nervous tick I couldn't stop. This was it, the day I confronted Veronica, my ex-partner, and everyone who had tried to bury me alive. Case number 4128, the judge announced. Samuel Davis versus Veronica Adams and Associates. I glanced at Lionel sitting behind me. He gave me a nod, steady and sure. He'd been my anchor through every panic attack, every night I thought I wouldn't survive. I took a breath and stood. Veronica looked flawless at the defense table, hair sleek, makeup sharp, the fake smile plastered on her face. Beside her sat my ex-partner, very much alive, despite the world believing he died in a fiery car crash. Seeing him breathe, smirk, exist, it made my blood boil. The proceedings dragged for hours. Veronica's lawyer, the same man I once trusted, painted me as a liar, a fraud, a desperate man trying to claw his way out of consequences. Mr. Davis, he said, smirking, isn't it true you've had financial trouble for years, that you've been unstable, prone to breakdowns? My hand shook, but I forced my voice steady. I had financial trouble because your client embezzled my life savings, and unstable, maybe, but you'd be unstable too if your family and the police betrayed you. Gasps rippled through the room. The judge banged his gavel for order. Then came the moment I'd been waiting for. Your Honour, I said, my voice louder now, I have new evidence they thought was destroyed. I pulled out a flash drive and handed it to the clerk. Lionel had risked everything to dig it out from a hidden hard drive Veronica didn't know still existed. Emails. Bank statements. Wire transfers with timestamps that proved Veronica and my ex-partner had orchestrated the fraud. Even Peterson, the crooked cop, was in on it. His name showed up on payment logs. As the documents projected on the courtroom screen, the room erupted. Jaws dropped. The jury leaned forward. The judge's eyes narrowed. Veronica's face drained of colour. My ex-partner's smirk vanished. This is fabricated. Veronica stammered, standing so fast her chair screeched. He's lying, Your Honour. I met her eyes for the first time in months. You've been gaslighting me, destroying me, and using everyone around you as pawns, but the truth doesn't stay buried forever, not even with fake funerals. Est again. Reporter scribbled furiously. Then came the twist I didn't see coming. The prosecutor stood and cleared his throat. Your Honour, for the record, the police have been monitoring the defendants for months. Mr. Davis's evidence corroborates an ongoing investigation. Arrests are pending. The courtroom exploded. Reporters shouted questions. The judge banged the gavel again, demanding silence. I turned to Lionel, stunned. They were watching them this whole time. He grinned, relief flooding his face. Yeah, brother, they just needed the final nail. Veronica broke then. She lunged toward me, eyes wild. You ruined me, you ruined everything. Bailiffs restrained her as she screamed, her perfect image cracking in front of everyone. My ex-partner sat frozen, pale as a ghost, as officers slipped cuffs around his wrists. Peterson wasn't in the courtroom, but word spread fast he was being arrested across town. The family lawyer slumped in his chair, silent. He knew his career was over. For a moment I just stood there, chest heaving, tears blurring my vision. All the humiliation, the whispers, the sleepless nights, it was crashing down at once. The judge turned to me. Mr. Davis, I believe justice has finally caught up with him. I nodded, unable to speak. My throat was too tight. After court adjourned, Lionel hugged me so hard I thought my ribs might break. You did it, Sam. You didn't just survive, you fought back. I pulled away, shaking my head. No, Lionel, we did it. Without you, I'd still be drowning. Outside, cameras flashed. Reporters shouted my name. But for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel shame. I felt free. That night, back in my apartment, I stared at my bank app, still showing $47.82, but I didn't feel despair. I felt possibility. The numbers would change. My life would change. For the first time in months, I slept without nightmares. Because I'd faced them. And I won. Winning in court wasn't the end. If anything, it was the start of a new kind of battle, this time inside my own head. The night after the trial, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Silence pressed down on me, heavier than any gavel. I expected relief, maybe even joy, but instead, a cold emptiness gnawed at me. My heart raced as if Veronica were still whispering poison in my ear. Every creak in the walls made me flinch. Even though justice had been served, my nervous system didn't believe it. At exactly 3:47 a.m., I sat up gasping, drenched in sweat. My chest clenched so hard I thought another heart attack was coming. Panic attack. I called into myself on the edge of the bed, rocking, whispering, "It's over, it's over, it's over," but my body refused to listen. The social backlash didn't magically disappear either. Yes, the courtroom scene made headlines. People whispered about the scandal in line at the grocery store. Did you hear? That man's daughter-in-law faked everything. But the whispers didn't stop, they just changed favour. Instead of fraud, now it was victim. Instead of criminal, now it was poor guy. And honestly, being pitied wasn't much better. The neighbours still avoided me. The Hendersons no longer said hello when I passed the porch. Kids who used to wave now ducked behind their parents' legs. I'd gone from villain to outcast, and either way, I walked alone. Therapy became my lifeline. My therapist office smelled faintly of lavender oil, her voice calm and steady. You've endured betrayal on multiple levels, she said. Family, friends, legal system, police, that kind of compound trauma rewires the brain. You're still living like the enemy is in the room. She wasn't wrong. Even when I sat in her office, I scanned for exits, checked my phone obsessively, twisted my graduation ring until my finger throbbed. It was like my brain had been trained to expect attack. Money was another brutal reality. The court froze Veronica and my ex-partner's accounts, but restitution takes time. Meanwhile, I have $47.82 to my name. I pawned old tools, sold furniture, even considered pawning my graduation ring, but I couldn't let go of it, not yet. One night, Lionel brought over a bag of groceries. The smell of cooking bacon filled my tiny kitchen as he fried some on the stove. Here skin and bones, Sam, he muttered. You gotta eat. I sat at the table, head in my hands. Lionel, I don't know if I can do this anymore. Winning didn't fix me, it didn't bring my son back. Darren still won't speak to me. Lionel's eyes softened. He's confused, she messed with his head. Give it time. He'll see the truth. I wanted to believe him. But at night, the silence from my son's side of the phone cut deeper than any courtroom insult. The rock bottom moment came 2 weeks later. I woke from another nightmare of Veronica's voice chanting liar, 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 and staggered into the bathroom. My reflection stared back, pale, gaunt, eyes hollow. I didn't recognize myself. I thought about ending it. Just stopping the pain. The thought scared me so badly I dropped to the floor and sobbed until sunrise. At my next therapy session, I admitted it. I wanted to disappear. She leaned forward, her voice steady. That's not weakness, Samuel. That's trauma screaming to be released. You survived their lies, but now you need to survive yourself. That means rebuilding. Rebuilding wasn't glamorous. It was slow, humiliating, messy. Filling out job applications and getting ghosted. Standing in food pantry lines, head down so neighbours wouldn't recognize me. Taking anti-anxiety meds that made my mouth dry and my hands tremble. But step by step, something shifted. Lionel dragged me to support groups. I heard other men talk about betrayal, gaslighting, abuse. For the first time, I didn't feel crazy. I didn't feel alone. Still, I couldn't ignore the damage. Darren refused to attend therapy with me. Veronica had poisoned him so deeply that even after she was exposed, he couldn't untangle truth from lies. That loss got worse than any financial ruin. Yet, even at rock bottom, a tiny ember of determination remained. My therapist reminded me of it often. They turn your strengths into weaknesses, your loyalty, your trust, your love, but those same qualities, once healed, will be your power again. I wanted to believe her. By the end of that summer, I was still broke, still isolated, still scarred. But I was alive. And though I didn't know it yet, recovery and even love was waiting just around the corner. Rock bottom didn't end me. It cracked me open. The first step upward came in therapy. My therapist gave me a journal and said, write the nightmares down, give the fear somewhere to live outside your head. At first, my entries were scribbles, 3:47 a.m. again. Veronica's voice. Can't breathe. But gradually, the scribbles turned into paragraphs. Then pages. By writing, I began to separate my memories from the lies Veronica had planted. I started to trust my own mind again. Money was still brutal. My bank account hovered under $50 for months, but Lionel kept me alive with groceries and small loans. You'll pay me back when you're on your feet, he said. Right now, just focus on healing. I considered pawning my college graduation ring again. One afternoon, I even drove to the pawn shop. I held it in my palm, the gold warm from my skin. The clerk said, I'll give you $120. I stared at it for a long time before slipping it back into my pocket. No, not today. That ring wasn't worth much in cash, but it was proof I had survived before. I needed that reminder more than I needed money. In group therapy, I met people who had faced similar betrayals. One man said, the gaslighting made me question if my childhood even happened the way I remembered. Hearing that broke something inside me, but it also freed me. I wasn't alone. The shame wasn't mine to carry anymore. Slowly, I rebuilt routines. Early walks. Healthy meals. Lionel and I cooked Mom's lasagna one Sunday. It didn't taste quite like hers, but for the first time in years, food didn't feel like ash in my mouth. And then came the moment that truly shifted my path. I was volunteering at a local shelter. My therapist had suggested service to pull me out of my own head. That's where I met Clara. She was helping organize food donations, sleeves rolled up, hair in a messy bun. She laughed easily, even when things went wrong. We struck up a conversation while sorting canned beans. She asked, so what brings you here? I hesitated, then shrugged. Rebuilding. She didn't press, didn't pity me. She just smiled and said, me too. Clara had her own scars: divorce, betrayal, loss. But instead of hiding them, she wore them openly. Over coffee, she told me, people broke me, but they didn't end me, and they won't end you either. Something in her honesty cracked the last wall I'd built around my heart. I found myself laughing again, genuinely laughing, like I hadn't since before everything burned down. It wasn't a fairy tale. Trust was hard. At first, I flinched when Clara touched my hand, worried it was another trap. I checked my phone obsessively, half expecting betrayal in every text. But therapy, journaling, and Clara's patience helped me retrain my brain. Step by step, I reclaimed my strength. I got a part-time job at a local hardware store. I rebuilt relationships with a few friends who reached out after the trial. I even started attending family therapy with Darren. It wasn't perfect, he was hesitant, closed off, but he showed up. That was enough. The neighbours still whispered sometimes, but it didn't sting like before. Once, as I walked by, I heard Mrs. Henderson murmur, "That poor man went through hell." And instead of crumbling, I thought yes. But I'm still here. True turning point came one evening when Clara and I sat on the porch, watching the sunset. She asked softly, "Do you still have nightmares?" I thought for a moment. Sometimes, but now, when I wake up, I know they're just dreams. They don't own me anymore. She squeezed my hand. And for the first time in years, I believed I could trust someone fully. When I turned 32, I celebrated differently. No big party, no champagne corks. Just lasagna with Lionel, Clara, and shockingly Darren, who showed up at the last minute. He hugged me awkwardly and whispered, "I'm sorry, Dad, I should have believed you." Tears burned my eyes, but I smiled. We'll rebuild, one step at a time. That night, I checked my bank account before bed. The number had finally climbed to just over $2,000 from steady work and careful saving. But for the first time in years, the number didn't define me. Because what I gained couldn't be measured, trust in myself, forgiveness for the past, and love that felt real. I lost career, friends, home, everything. Veronica turned my strengths into weaknesses and almost destroyed me. But she didn't win. I learned to trust again. I found healthy love with Clara. And now, when the clock hits 3:47 a.m., I don't wake in terror anymore. I sleep. Because my story isn't about betrayal anymore. It's about survival and the life I built after.